Hello, everyone. Hopefully, you can hear us and see us. We'll be starting in just a second. We're back after a week off and after an odd schedule. Our schedule should be back to normal from here until Christmas. Yeah, I assume that'd be the case. Yeah, there's no other holidays in between now and then. So every Friday at 6:30 p.m. UK time, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. Remember it. Put it in your diaries every Friday. I do wish there was a way to automatically set up the live stream every week so that we having to manually schedule it. It's so annoying. Oh, I need to do my sound recorder test because I've not done that. I'm finally used to typing sound instead of voice. It's so good.
Testing 1 2 3.
Testing 1 2 3.
Clapping.
Testing 1 2 3. That works. Can I delete now? Thank you.
I broadcast.
Oh,
so many
windows.
windows.
On do not disturb mode. I always forget. Guessing Jez won't be in today's podcast. Yes, Jez is tired. He was at Gamescom all week, so we gave him the day off.
My tweet is now live as well. Okay. We have to recorder.
I'm ready to go when you are.
Yep, I'm almost there.
Sorry.
You don't sound quite ready.
I'm ready now.
All right. I am now recording.
I'm recording as well.
3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 281 for August 26, 2022. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. Sadly, no Jez Corden with us this week as he's in Gamescom in Germany, actually, and covering that event. And he actually had a nice little exclusive scoop, which we'll talk a little bit about later regarding Xbox. But this week, we are back after a weird month of August podcasting, but it's also been a pretty slow month, so we have a lot to recap on, including the Windows 11 recap and the latest builds and what's happening there. The new Outlook Windows app, you can now technically download it, and it works with personal accounts, and Zach and I will share our thoughts on it. I've been using the PWA version of it for a while, but now I've switched to this one. I'll explain kind of why that is. I also just published my Z Fold 4 thoughts. Actually, it's 5 things I love about it and 5 things I hate about it as well. It's a very interesting device. I'm a little polarized on it, but I'll explain my thoughts and reasonings on it. I haven't decided if I'm keeping it yet or not, but I did put my primary SIM in it, so I am going full in on this thing. I'm not giving it a fair shake. HP had a bunch of announcements this week, including giving us a pre-production version of a new laptop that they just announced, which is honestly one of my favorite laptops of the year so far. And I'll explain why. There's something more interesting coming, but in terms of actually pragmatic, I think people would buy. This is definitely a really neat laptop, and I really give HP some credit here, although it is a more businessy device. Will there be an Xbox price hike? Well, Sony just jacked up their PlayStation 5, so let's find out about that. Plus, our reviews roundup. We actually had quite a few this week, including I got to review my new favorite mouse, which is the new version of my old favorite mouse. And so I'll explain what mouse that is, why it is my favorite, and why you probably want to save up a lot of money for it. Because, of course, it's going to be expensive. Dan's favorite stuff is always expensive stuff, because that's just how the world works. Anyway, Zach, how are you doing on this fine Friday?
I am not too bad. We are at the end of... It feels like a long week, but it wasn't. It was still a short week for us, but it was a longer week than last week, which was 3 days. So it's been difficult to reacclimatize to the 5-day work week.
You know, there is that push for a 4-day work week, and I'm kind of all on board about that. Yeah, but maybe I'm just getting lazy in my old
The
age.
problem with that for us is that everybody has to be on board for it to actually feel like a 4-day work week for us. Because otherwise, there's people out there putting news out, and we're not working, and we feel bad about it.
Yeah, so you stagger the days off.
That's
all.
True. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, well, yeah, I'm trying to think what days are the slowest. I think Thursdays and Tuesdays are pretty slow, whereas Mondays we do tend to get a lot of announcements. But enough about the boring stuff. What's happened with Windows 11 over the last couple of weeks, and what do we need to know about those latest builds?
Yeah, so actually, before we get to the builds, something that just sort of popped into my head just now. Last week, I tweeted out the potential release dates for the next version of Windows 11, version 22H2. Microsoft is yet to officially announce version 22H2's release dates. But as far as I'm aware, according to my sources, Microsoft is currently planning to begin the rollout on September 20th. So that's sort of the current date internally. That date could move around. You know, dates are never sort of set in stone until they're announced with Microsoft. But internally, that is what they're looking at, September 20th for version 22H2. And that will roll out as a free update to all existing Windows 11 users for free. And then the Moment stuff, I hear the Moments is supposed to sort of kick off almost straight away. I'm hearing the first Windows 11 Moment updates could roll out as soon as October. So Windows 11 version 22H2 comes out in September. Then we get the first Moment update in October. And that Moment update is supposed to include tabs in File Explorer, suggested actions, and a few other sort of tweaks and changes that are in testing right now with the beta channel on build 22622. The release preview build right now is pretty much what will ship on September 20th, assuming they stick to that date. So that doesn't have tabs in File Explorer, that it's still missing suggested actions, as well as a handful of other smaller stuff. But so yeah, that's the sort of schedule for Windows in the next couple of months. Again, like I said, those dates could move around, but that is what I'm hearing as of a couple of weeks ago. So that's super interesting. Regarding the Windows Insider stuff, really not much happened this week in the Insider program, which appears to be a common occurrence these days. They did add a new touch keyboard setting in build 25188, and what this will allow you to do is configure when the touch keyboard actually shows up. And you can set it to never when there is no keyboard attached, or always. This will be really handy for PCs, for 2-in-1s, for example, where sometimes you may want to use the on-screen keyboard even though you have a physical keyboard attached. Or if you're using, say, a Surface Studio, which has it's a 28-inch touchscreen, but you have a Bluetooth keyboard always connected to it. If you still want that touch keyboard to appear, you can now set this to do so, which is really kind of cool. And they've also set Windows Terminal as the default terminal on Windows 11. I feel like they've done that before a handful of times. They keep flip-flopping on whether it should be default, and in this build, it's default again. So if you're a big fan of Windows Terminal, that's good news for you. And then everything else is just fixes, lots and lots of fixes as they gear up for the version 22H2 launch in the next few weeks. Dan, I hear you upgraded to 22H2 this week. What are your thoughts on it so far?
Yeah, so this is on my main desktop rig with 12th gen Intel. And I actually tried to upgrade, I don't know, 6 weeks ago probably, when it first hit the release preview channel. And it did the update, and as it rebooted, it was like, nah, we're not going to install it. And so I wasn't able to actually use it. But I figured I'd try again this week. I mean, I was like, it's got to be, fixed now, right? They've put a lot of little patches out there. And so it's installed, and I've had 0 issues with it. I do like the new notifications with the bigger target buttons for, like dismiss and stuff like that. I think it just looks a little bit better. I like the new notification panel design. I think it looks good. That's all I've really noticed so far. There's not a ton of like really new stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. I am getting the new notifications for the what do you call it? The pop-up taskbar thingy. the sidebar.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, it shows weather currently, but sometimes if there's like, I'm been getting like stock alerts and stuff like that.
I see stocks there mostly.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Obviously, that isn't finished, that this whole concept of widgets on Windows 11, and they're slowly building it out and refining it. So I'm kind of interested in watching that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I haven't really noticed anything else so far that's really new. But yeah, it's been running fine. So that's really kind of all I care about in that sense, right?
Yeah. Give me one sec to pull up my review, because I have a really handy rundown of all the new things, which I'm trying to find my review right now. This stupid CMS is so terrible.
Yeah.
Hang on. So there is actually, as you mentioned, it's kind of difficult to notice everything. That's new. I wish this would search. It's just refusing to search for my review. Yeah, so it's not a huge update, version 22.2. I think that's fair to say. I would consider this a sort of 11.1, which is fair. This is kind of what these updates are supposed to be, right? These aren't supposed to be major updates. This isn't a Windows 12 in any sense of the word. Although the actual platform client is being updated, the top layer for the user certainly isn't. And the CMS just will not search for my review. But there are some notable changes here, and if I could pull up my review, I could give you the rundown. There we go. Here we are. All right. So I have a handy rundown here. So here's what's new. App folders in the start menu. So if you have a cluttered start menu, you'll be able to create app folders, which is really nice. You can also resize the pinned area in the start menu now. So you can either, I think you can reduce the rows to just 2, or you can increase them to 4, which will also subsequently increase or decrease the recommended area as well. You've also got the Focus Assist integration within the notification center. That's the little timer when you click on the date and time button in the taskbar. There's the new Spotlight wallpaper feature. So if you want sort of, I guess it's the Bing daily wallpaper to be applied automatically to your desktop daily, that's now a feature as well. Lots of accessibility features, including voice access and live captions. Lots of gestures and animations for touch users, which isn't going to benefit you, Dan, since you're using a desktop. The snap layouts bar when moving app windows. That's actually the most notable change that I've noticed. Whenever you grab an app window and move it around, if you sort of bring your window to the top of your display, you'll notice there's a little bar that sort of appears, and you can now snap windows using that, which is pretty cool. Also...
I wonder why that's coming, actually. That's a little bit of foreshadow for a new device, but that's
fine. New Task Manager app. So if you open Task Manager frequently, that's a brand new experience for you as well. As I mentioned, suggested actions and tabs in File Explorer, that is coming in an update after the rollout, the main rollout. File Explorer updates in general, there's better OneDrive integration. And then there's also numerous UI improvements and consistency updates. So yeah, it's not a huge update, but there's certainly a list full of new changes and features worthy of note, I think. But yeah, I think the more interesting stuff will probably be reserved for Windows Next Valley, which is currently scheduled for 2024.
Yeah, the little updates to like File Explorer where you can see the photos and stuff like that, you know. Yeah. It looks nicer, so that's cool. Someone's asking about what I think about the folders in the start menu. I don't know I think you said I don't have those. Regardless, I don't really use the start menu.
Yeah.
I use the start menu as in to type and search something, what I'm looking for, just like I do like on Android. I've never even set up my start menu. It's pretty much the default. I've mostly removed dumb stuff that I don't use.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't use start menu. I don't even really use search very often. I mean,
do you pin everything to
I use a search bar. Huh?
Do you pin everything to your taskbar?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm on a 34-inch 4K display. It's
there's a lot of room down there.
Yeah, so that's I just pinned, and because it's centered, it just looks better. So I really enjoy it. So that's how I use my app. So I think a lot of people do that. A lot of people obviously use their desktop, which is gross, but you can do it. And then there's start menu. But honestly, this is why I didn't really care about the new start menu. I'm like, all right, whatever. I barely use that thing anyway. Sure. So that's fine.
Well, that's pretty much all the news for the Windows OS this week. We can turn our attention now to the new Outlook app, which, isn't new really at this point. They announced it a while back at this point, and we've known about it since January 2021. I wrote about it in a post when it was codenamed Project Monarch. It's now finally here. It has been in testing for the last few months with Microsoft 365 business subscribers. And as of this week, I don't know if they officially announced it, but the client now finally works with personal accounts as well. So you can download the client as a normal user like me or Dan, sign into it and actually begin using it. And I've been using it for the past few days. I think Dan has as well. And my thoughts are mostly positive. I do like how it looks. I think it looks pretty clean. It most certainly is a web app, but I'm not too bothered about that as a web client. The email is all about the web, to be honest, anyway, so I'm totally fine with the actual client being a web client in this case. I will say that I wish it would send me push notifications when it's closed. That's the one thing it doesn't seem to do right now. When I close the app, I don't get any notifications from it, which is kind of annoying. So I still have the Windows 11 sort of default mail app installed just so I can get those notifications come through, because that's kind of important to me.
Wait, what? So what about your notifications?
When the new Outlook app doesn't send notifications for me.
Weird. Totally does for me.
I mean, when it's open, it does, but when it's closed, it doesn't.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's true.
Yeah.
And I think those are evolving technologies.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
fact, I
yeah.
think in Edge, like if you go to the flags on some of the dev versions and beta, it might even be there in production, you can actually do something about that, I think, where you can enable notifications. So that'll be worked on. But yeah, you're right. If it's closed, you don't get the
Mm.
notifications,
Yeah.
which is also an interesting behavior. Sometimes I don't mind that behavior,
Yeah, and
but I
you
can see
know,
where it's confusing.
Classic Outlook was the same. If you closed Classic Outlook like completely, it wouldn't send you notifications either. Of course, it wouldn't. Why would it? It's not a mobile app. It's not a UWP app. UWP apps use the sort of Toast notification background service that Microsoft has, which treats them as phones. You know, phones when apps are closed, you still get notifications because of the push notification service on those platforms. Windows has a similar one, but most legacy apps don't use it. Only modern ones do. And Outlook right now, the new preview doesn't use that. I kind of hope it will, but like I said, who knows what's going to happen there. But otherwise, yeah, it's pretty nice. Dan, what are your thoughts on the actual client itself?
I mean, I love it because the old inbox mail app was just terrible. It was just getting
Yeah.
so bad for me. I've complained about it multiple times on this podcast that like I would just open an email and it wouldn't open, and I couldn't switch from focused, and I would have to basically close it and reopen it. It was just very inconsistent. It didn't have a lot of the new features. Like for instance, one of the best features of the new Outlook is there's a unsubscribe thing header. So when you get an email and you're like, you know what, I'm tired of this, getting these daily emails, you just hit like unsubscribe, and 9 times out of 10, it does it for you, and you don't need to do anything else. And it's just super convenient. And like stuff like that, just not in the new app. It's just like the rule systems are a little bit better. You get more options. The So I was saying I was using the PWA version, which is 98% the same. The big difference is with PWAs, you tend to get the Edge kind of taskbar on top, and it's black. It kind of blends in. But with the regular app, it looks like a standard app now. Like you can't tell it's like a web app, quote unquote. But I've had no performance issues. It's been very reliable. When it's open, I get the notifications. They have a nice little chime to them. I've already whatever laptop I'm using, like the ThinkPad X13s is kind of like my main one right now. I've immediately you can uninstall the
Yeah.
inbox the mail app if you want Windows 11, which is cool. So you just uninstall that, install this thing, but you have to get the link, I believe, through our article. It's not like you can just go to the Microsoft Store yet, or Microsoft site as advertising. It's sort of like dog fooding link. So if you want, go to our site, look for new Outlook app Windows 11. You should be able to find the article and get the link at the end. But I mean, I love it. I think it's so much better. I don't care if it's a web app. I can't tell. Honestly, I can't tell the difference outside of like it loads and it can refresh the UI. That's the only thing you notice. But no, it's great. I'm
Yeah.
happy with it.
Yeah, as you mentioned, like you said, yeah, right now the client's only available through direct link, and it's not listed on Microsoft sites anywhere yet, I don't think. But it will eventually be there, and it will also be in the Microsoft Store as well. That's all to come. And eventually, I think it will also just replace mail and calendar. It will be the default inbox email experience, which is, I think, way off at this point, but that is the end goal for that, which is pretty cool. A couple of people asking if we can talk about the whole Outlook ads sort of debacle that happened this week.
Right.
A lot of people noticed that there are ads in Outlook, which I thought there were always ads in Outlook, but apparently it's new to some people, or they rolled it out to more people, or maybe it's I can't remember the exact scenario. I think it's now, it used to show up in the other tab, but now it's showing up in the focus tab as well, or something along those lines. This has always been the case I've always seen ads in Outlook. The only reason I don't see ads in Outlook on my personal account is because I pay for Outlook Premium, and that gets rid of all of the ads.
Exactly. That's always, and they've always been that option for Outlook Premium.
But that tells me there has always been ads in Outlook. So I don't know where the controversy came from this week, but that is the case. With free email services, there are ads in the client experience. It's the same for Gmail. It's the same for Outlook. I don't think iCloud does it. I could be wrong about iCloud, but I don't think iCloud does it. But certainly the online versions of Gmail and Outlook certainly do. And I don't know where the outrage has come from, but yes, Microsoft does it as well. If you don't like it, use an ad blocker or pay for Outlook Premium, which is what I do.
Yeah. Or, I mean, and that's just part of the Microsoft 365 stuff. You get that if you're paying for Office and OneDrive and all that kind of stuff. So, I don't have an issue with it. Again, it's not free to I don't make the email client, but all the storage that's required for it and the back end stuff. Gmail's always done this. That was always the controversy with Gmail, was it would actually like scan for keywords in your email and then service up ads based on that. And from what I remember, Microsoft doesn't do that, but it's been many years since we've talked about ads and email apps. So I'm kind of over it at this point. Yeah. Also, I want to point out with, if you're watching the video, we're a little interesting thing here. So we're both using the Lumina 4K AI camera, but it just got another software update and a firmware update. And you might notice, like, my skin tone, I think, looks way more natural now. Yeah. And Zach looks a little bit red, and because Zach hasn't upgraded. Mm-hmm. So kind of interesting. They did a lot more in terms of the blurring and some different effects and all this, and it's getting closer to what their vision of a DSLR camera would look like. And I think they did a really nice job. They still got to bring back the color calibration skin tone thing, but for white balance. But I'm actually really happy with the image right now. Like, it looks way better, I think.
It does look good. Yeah, yours, especially with the lighting you've got, is really nice. My lighting setup is not great, so mine does certainly look a bit worse. But yours looks like that's broadcast sort of TV sort of quality. I think it's totally fine for like news or whatever.
I will say I am getting another webcam in rather soon, probably in the next week or two. So I'll probably be switching to that, even maybe during the podcast, to test it out to see how it is, if it's good enough. But in terms of specs, it's it has like one of the, if not the largest sensor of any webcam to date. It even has a remote control, so you can actually control the zoom, stuff like that, with the remote. And yeah, it's going to be super expensive, obviously, so this isn't a cheap one. Doesn't have Windows Hello, Zach, as far as I know.
None of them do. Literally none of them.
I know. Yeah, because I think, what they're all doing, they're also focusing on the high-end sensor and AI and everything else in it, that putting Windows Hello in it would jack the price up even higher, and maybe they just don't see the return in value yet. But yeah, that's definitely a criticism. But it's going to be interesting to see. There's a lot of movement in this space, which we'll talk about with HP a little bit later as well, because they do a lot on this too. So cool stuff. All right, let's go to the Galaxy Z Fold 4. So it came out today, if you had ordered it. Although if you ordered it early, like early, they actually shipped it early, and they called it fast shipping. And I got mine Tuesday around noon, and that's always cool. Good on you, Samsung. And so I've had 4 days with it. And, we've talked about whether I was going to switch from Duo and all that. So I did put my main SIM in it after about 2 days of setting it up and kind of getting used to it. So I am going all in on this to actually test them. Not like some reviewers who are like, oh, I'll just use it as a secondary device, which I really just don't believe you can get a real taste of the device unless it's the only thing you're sticking in your pocket when you leave the house and the thing you rely on. So I am going all in on it. And so I wrote this article just kind of, I want to say quickly, but it's a pretty long article, actually. But it's 5 things I love and 5 things I hate about it. And there are things I hate about it. Does that mean I'm not going to use the Fold 4? No, not at all, actually. The more I'm using the Fold 4, the more it's growing on me. But there are some things that bother me that, no matter how often I use it, are going to continue to bother me. So let's go through the things I love. The first one is, we've talked about this before, it's a sick trade-in deal, at least if you're in the United States and some other places, right? It's an $1,800 device, but they upgraded everyone from the 256 version, which was $17.99, to 512 gigs for free. That's kind of cool. You also got a free cover case for it, which switches between, and it ships with the S Pen with it, and it has either the S Pen holder, or you can pop that out and just put the kickstand in, which is kind of clever. So that was free with it. And I traded in my Z Flip 3, and they give you the credit ahead of time, which is really nice. So now they're waiting on me to send the phone, but they already gave me the $900 credit. So it brought down the price to $1,000. Still super expensive, obviously, but after tax, it would have been $1,900. Had they not done this. And so I thought that's just a great way to have got someone like me to go from a Flip to the Fold. And so good on Samsung for that. The hardware is immaculate. Number 2, There's no doubt about it, right? It's a $1,700 phone. It feels like a $1,700 phone. Like it's just really, really well done. Samsung, like Apple and like Microsoft, just know how to make premium feeling devices. When we pull a Surface Duo 2 out of the case, you're like, damn, this thing is really nice. And you feel that way with iPhones and definitely with this device. The cameras have gotten ribbed on a little bit because of foldables. They're always a little bit worse, but I'm really happy with the camera. This year, they upgraded it from a 12 to a 50 megapixel for the main sensor. It makes a big difference, better low light performance. I'm really happy with kind of all that. The screen obviously is immaculate. It's 120 hertz dynamic refresh, 7.6 inch, 2176 by 1812 resolution, which is actually less than Surface Duo 2. The PPI on Surface Duo 2 is actually higher than the Fold 4, which many people don't realize. HDR10 Plus. It's just really, really nice. The under display camera. Yeah, it's not a great selfie camera, obviously, but such cool tech. It's really neat that, that's the future, and it's just going to continue to get better. But you can always use the cover screen selfie thing anyway, which is fine, or you can even use the main cameras, which is kind of cool. The S Pen is actually nice as well. I've always said the S Pen. I've always thought Samsung has done well with the S Pen, sometimes even better than Surface. The latency is great on it, feels nice. Yeah, it doesn't, it's round and it's going to be more prominent than the Surface Pen, which is flat, but it's fine. It's also a little bit easier to write on because it's one giant 7.6 inch screen versus two separate ones. And we'll see if I continue to use it to actually take notes on and stuff like that for trips. But yeah, we'll see. Decent battery life. I was actually kind of surprised by this one. But the battery life has not been, it's not only not been awful, it's actually been pretty solid. So I used it for 15 hours the other day, and I still had 42% battery left. Now, I only used the screen on time was 2.5 hours. So it's not like I was using it extensively. But this was during what I would call the honeymoon phase, where I don't restore my phone. I set up everything. I download all the apps individually. I log everything in. It's a process. So I'm spending a lot of time in it. And then there's also the fact that Samsung has so many settings. Yeah. You can spend hours just be like, oh, I did not know that was a thing. And I didn't even know how to do a screenshot. I knew there was the power button volume trick, but it's actually really hard to do on the Fold because of its size. But there's a thing you can enable where you swipe your palm, the edge of your palm across the screen, and it does it. I had no idea. So I spent a lot of time just setting it up and playing with it. But it's pretty good battery life. Is it better than a lot of top end, single screen phones? No, but I don't know. Like I said, it's definitely, I think, better than Surface Duo 2. Which I think is progress, especially because of the amount of screens on this. This gets into number 4, robust software from Samsung. Now, Samsung just really threw a lot into this thing. And so, for instance, on Surface Duo 2, it has the power button with the fingerprint reader built into it, which is really awesome. And how it works is you don't need to press the power button. You just tap it with your finger, and it reads your fingerprint and turns on the screen and logs in. It's really nice. It's seamless. The Fold 4 out of the box doesn't do that. You have to press it in to power on, and then it reads. But there's a setting way buried in the settings where you can turn it on, so it does that. There's also a setting way buried also that allows you to use that same power button fingerprint reader as a way to bring down a notification shade. So you swipe down on it, the shade comes down, swipe again, it goes down further, exposes all the controls, and you swipe back up. And I was like, that's really clever. A lot of phones used to do that when they had it on the back of the phone. I thought that was nice. So a lot of these usability things. It also, ships with the on-screen controls, which I think kind of makes sense. Those are easier to see. But I just really didn't like it. And then once I was like, oh, wait, gestures, I turned those on. The gestures are basically the same as what Microsoft is using with Duo 2. So you swipe up from the bottom and hold for a second. It brings up multitasking. And if you swipe from the left edge or right edge, it goes forward and backwards and goes back that way. And I found that way more natural. I'm so used to that. Also because of how narrow the device is, it's actually really good for typing on with the thumb keyboards. And so I've used the Samsung thumb keyboard, Swift key, and the Google Gboard. And so far, I actually kind of like Swift key, believe it or not. But I'll be experimenting with those. So yeah, software is just really cool. Like for instance, also, and I didn't know this, so I was using Microsoft Launcher at first, and it's fine. It mostly works, although the news feed area wasn't working on it when it was folded out for some reason. But I ended up going back to Samsung's One UI launcher, which runs definitely a little bit smoother, has better animations. I know Zach's talked about this a lot too. But there's like cool things you can do. So when you open up the device and it's like full screen, you can have your setup. But when you close it, the cover screen, you can actually have a separate setup for that one, which is kind of neat. So the idea is like, since you're using it one-handed, you can just have your main apps that you're going to use there versus when you open it up, you can have a completely different layout. But when I was using Microsoft Launcher, it didn't do that. It just mirrored what was there, which you can also do. You can do that one UI. You could turn that off and you could just have it mirror. But with Launcher, it would mirror it, and then like my widgets would get all screwed up because it's so narrow. And I was like, oh God, this is terrible. Like then you had to overthink stuff. But again, Samsung kind of had a solution for it, so I thought that was cool. That gets to, yeah, it's excellent as a one-handed phone. It's easy to pull out of your pocket. You can use raise to wake. You can use the face recognition to open it up. You can have the lock screen open up automatically instead of swiping up. And since it's, was it 2.2 millimeters thinner, 2.8 millimeters wider this year, it's just wide enough now. I had no real problems typing on it, even with a tiny thumb keyboard. It just seemed to work fine for me. It's not amazing, but it's way better than Surface Duo 2. Surface Duo 2, no way to operate it one-handed. You have to pull it out of your pocket, open it, reverse fold it, and even then, it's still a pretty wide thing to hold one-handed. I don't think most people would trust themselves. So, and if you like making phone calls, I don't, but it's fine holding it up to your head. I guess it gets into the 5 things I hate. The form factor and multitasking, believe it or not. The device worked better in landscape mode when you're multitasking. You throw into landscape, all of a sudden it's wider and it looks more like a Surface Duo, and you can see more of the content. It just makes more sense. In fact, I want to use it like that all the time, and I want to fold it that way, which of course would snap the phone in half. But it's just too narrow. And the narrowness is actually a pro and a con, because I just said it's good for typing on. But I think basically is the screens are too tall. If they just cut off like 1.5 inches maybe, and just made the screens a little bit more squarish, it would just look better for doing this kind of stuff in terms of scaling. So and when it comes to the multitasking, we've hammered this endlessly, but this is a fact. When you open a device to full screen and you hit an app, it's going to launch full screen on it. That's the default behavior. You can't actually change that. Most of your apps are just blown up bigger versions of the app on your regular phone right now. Some look okay. Outlook will actually do what it does on Duo. It actually gives you the mail on one side and you can view the pane on the other side, which is kind of cool. Gmail doesn't do that, surprisingly, although it does it in the landscape. So it's like, that's kind of strange. But for the most part, you're just getting a bigger version of the app. Now, this ships with Android 12L. So then the thing is, it's like, oh, wow, about 12L. Like, yeah, it's got this little taskbar at the bottom, and it can disappear and comes up. If the keyboard is up, it can't show up over the keyboard, so you got to push down the keyboard. But you can then drag and drop an app into a space. You can also do it through, there's a little window, like bar at the top. You can tap that, and it gives you an option, and then it opens up a little menu, and you have to find your app you want, and then you can drag it in there. And you can create app pairs and then put them in this weird bar that slides out. The problem with all this stuff is, like, for one, I had to watch a video and look it up. There was like, none of this was very obvious. Whereas on Duo 2, you're like, it's got 2 screens. You open an app on one side, open the app on the other. You have your your home screen on the other side. Shane Craig, Scary Flitteral on YouTube, did a really good video explaining this, just how much more intuitive and easier it is for multitasking. And he's 100% right. So I don't love it for multitasking. Yeah, it works, but it's an afterthought, right? I do see Samsung, kind of going down the road, though, because all they would need to do is what we said previously. If Microsoft makes a single screen foldable, is just do it in software. You can just have an option. By default, it looks like it treats the one display as two displays, and it opens apps on each side. And if you want to override that, you can just have a whitelist and you just say, okay, always make this app full screen. It's the reverse of what Microsoft does. Microsoft right now, you have apps open on each side, but still Duo 2 and Duo 1, it's software that's making it two screens. Android does not see two displays. It's impossible. And so it just imagines it's one screen, and Microsoft does it via software, and they draw in a virtual gutter. But if you want to override that and you want an app to open Spanned all the time, you can do that. And so you can do that for Outlook and opens, so they just need to do it reverse. And I think they may do this. They have added a lot more options for split screen, but it's still not as fun as Duo 2. And it just hasn't really gone to my workflow yet. Yeah, sure, it's nice to have a giant display, but it's a slippery, the number 2 reason I hate it, it's a slippery brick. Don't forget, it's got an outer Gorilla Glass display, which makes it slippery, and it's very narrow and very thick. It's how thick is it?
I think we're close. It's like 13 point something millimeters.
It's more than that, I think. I think it's like 16, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I thought I put that in there. Maybe I didn't. Or maybe it's in a different section. Anyway, yeah, it's way thicker. So the funny thing is it's actually lighter. It's 21 grams lighter than Duo 2. That's the weird thing. Oh. But if I gave you both devices, you wouldn't think that. You would think the Duo 2 is lighter. Why? Because Duo 2 has a larger surface area, and it's spread out more, right, and it's evenly balanced. And so it just doesn't feel as heavy. And when it's in your pocket, it's pretty wide, but that wideness helps keep it in your pocket. To its credit, I did sit down. I was at PetSmart training my dog, and I sat down in the chair. And like PetSmart, they have like those hard floors, those like cement floor things. I sat down in the chair, and after a minute or two, the phone slid out and just plunk onto the ground. No. Right, no case. To Samsung's credit, and Michael Fisher has talked about this a lot too. It's a durable phone. It didn't have a dent, a scratch, wow, nothing broke. Yeah, I was like, my heart. I'm trying to listen to the instructor and keep track of my dog and everything. And I'm like, all I'm thinking is like, is the phone broken? I'm like opening it. I'm like, come on. But yeah, it's fine. I did went home and put the case on it though. But I mean, it feels like a gold brick in your pocket, and it's just not. I don't know. Number 3, I really hate this one. You have to pry it open. Like this thing is like when it snaps shut, which is great feeling. Like when you snap it, it's like very satisfying.
The one thing I really don't like about the Duo is that the two halves just sort of rest together. There's no moment where they clip together, which is good and bad. It's good because it's easier to open, but it doesn't feel as satisfying to go have it like snap shut. They just rest together. Whereas on the Galaxy Fold, they literally like clench to each other, right?
Yeah, I mean it's like pliers, and there's no like space for your thumb, so you have to like put the tips of your thumbs and maybe your nails in between each half, stick your thumbs in there, and then like pry it, and it's like really hard to open. Like I'm not kidding. Now maybe it'll get better over time. I don't know. All I'm saying is the Surface Duo and Duo 2's hinges are consistent from close to open to reverse fold. It's going to feel 100% the same no matter what position it's in, and it's easier to open one-handed. Especially, I know Zach doesn't, but I put the bumpers on my Duo 2, and that really helps opening it. I have no problem opening the Duo 2 and no fear of dropping it. I've had numerous close calls opening this thing where I fumble with it because it's so hard in my thumbs, and you're trying to get your thumbs in there. It's like it's ridiculous. How hard it is to open. Really not just a fan of that. I mentioned it's great as a one-handed phone. It's also terrible as a one-handed phone when it's opened. Right. What I mean here is everybody rips on the Duo and Duo 2 for the thick bezels, and Zach and I have endlessly talked about, but those bezels help when you're holding it in different postures not to touch the display. And one way I always use the Duo and Duo 2 really is, if I'm reading a Kindle app or a long article, you have your thumb and your index finger, and you pinch it in the middle like a little tiny book, and you hold it that way. And the Duo 2 feels great holding it that way. You can hold like that for a long time. And because the border, your thumb doesn't touch the display. Now you look at Fold 4. Oh, look at the thin bezels. It's just all display and it looks amazing. You can't really hold the phone one-handed though when it's open like that. You can't. You have to hold it two-handed the whole time. And that sucks if you're reading. It's not like no one wants to. Like, you ever see someone at the beach with a paperback, two hands holding it the whole time? Of course not. That's not how we do things. So it's actually terrible one-handed. Like there was just no way I could hold this thing without constantly touching the screen, launching an app, minimizing an app. Very frustrating. And I put some two photos to compare what I mean on it, which I think really demonstrates the idea. And number 5, it can be overly complicated. Again, people rip on Duo 2 like Microsoft Launcher because Microsoft ripped out a lot of the custom functionality, and there's just not a ton of stuff there. But there is a madness to Microsoft's approach, which is the Duo 2 is way simple to operate. Like there were really no instructions on how to use a lot of stuff outside of like how to span an app through a gesture or just using gestures in general. But that's always the case. But it's like there's not a lot with Duo 2. It's like it does what it's supposed to, and it's easy to figure out. On Fold 4, there are, and this is a pro and a con, there are just so many settings. Like I'm spending hours, I'm just discovering these little things. Like, oh, I'm glad they're there, but like it took me a while to configure the device until it was like, okay, now I kind of like it. Whereas the Duo 2, it really wasn't like that. And Samsung is just notorious for just like throwing out 9,000 things. They got 900 of their own apps everywhere. A lot of them are redundant with Google. And this all sucks if you want to use Microsoft stuff because you have now Google's junk and you have Samsung's junk. And you're like, I just want Microsoft's junk. And it's just like, it's overwhelming. Like, I don't know how a normal person, a non-techie person would pick this phone up and really understand, like really benefit from it. Because once you do set everything up and you do like the fingerprint scanner stuff and raise to wake, all these things are optional. Like it becomes a way better device. But like you have to spend a lot of time digging around. And this stuff is just, it's not like the iPhone and it's not like Duo 2. And I kind of like Microsoft's approach here. We're just keeping it simple. Yeah, okay, I would still like to change my icons. But even changing the icons is actually not easy on if you're using One UI in their themes. Like I've downloaded icon packs and I go to apply them and it's like, no, there's no One UI thing. It's like, well, now how do I apply new icons? And I still haven't really figured that part out. So now I'm going to go on the internet and read about that because I'm sure there's a way. And I'm not using Samsung themes. Like who uses Samsung themes in 2022?
Jez does.
Those are the corniest, cheesiest things I've ever seen. Like that stuff was cool maybe in 2009.
They bring you back to the Windows XP theming days. They really do.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna have a heavy metal look. All my icons are gonna look like heavy metal. Like it's like, oh my god, that stuff is so. If I saw something like that, I'd be like, well, let me guess, you drive a Camaro. Like it's just, I don't know, it's just corny as hell. So those are the 5 things I love and 5 things I hate. Notice I didn't talk about how overly expensive it is. How obviously. That's true. I didn't talk about the folded gap. I didn't talk about the plasticky screen or the crease as negatives. Why? Yeah, they're all negatives. You all know that. Like, I mean, that's common sense stuff. I think we can all agree upon that. There's no controversy. If I could not have a crease, that'd be great. If I could not have a gap, that'd be great. But I think there's a low-hanging fruit in terms of criticizing the Fold 4. Most people know about that stuff. I want to talk about things that just bothered me personally and trying to switch. So the question is, am I going to actually switch? I don't know. I mean, I'm going to continue using it. And like I said, the more I use it, the more I like. But there's also things like opening it up just really bothers me. And I don't feel that way with Surface Duo 2. And when I open up Surface Duo 2 and start using it, I'm just like, I love this. Like, this is what I want. And so this would be an easier thing for me if the Duo 2 simply didn't exist. But like, when I look at my Duo 2, and I don't know, the way it works is the way I work. And so I find it easier that way. I suppose if I just spent all my time on YouTube, watching full screen videos, obviously the Fold 4 would be a better thing, but I don't do that as much. So I don't know. Yeah. Someone's asking, did I mention battery life? Yes. I said the battery life is better than expected, and it's probably better than Surface Duo 2 at this point as well. But that's probably the new chipset,
Yeah, it is the new chipset. The Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, I think it's called. Such a terrible name. Yep. It is more efficient. I think it's like in the teen percentage more efficient than the normal non-plus version. So that's really nice. It is interesting. I hear your list of things you don't like, and almost all of them are the same things that I had problems with the Galaxy Fold 1 from whenever that launched. Because I was a Galaxy Fold user for the first gen. I had the first Galaxy Fold, which was a beautiful device. It was the first of its kind. It was amazing. It was flawed in so many ways, but I loved that device to pieces. The Surface Duo 1 came out and I switched to that, and I haven't gone back to the Galaxy Fold line since. I was on the fence about ordering a Galaxy Fold 4, but I didn't do it in the end. I showed great self-restraint and I didn't put my money down for one, so I'm still using the Duo 2. And your list there just sort of reaffirmed to me that, you know, I didn't enjoy the Galaxy Fold in those areas, and mostly none of them have been fixed. The whole prying the device open was the case on the Galaxy Fold 1. That thing snapped shut and clenched shut, and you had to pry it open to get it open. The plasticky screen, it was a soft screen back then, it's a soft screen now. That hasn't changed either. Funny enough, you know, you mentioned, you know, it's easy to use in one hand because when it's closed it's very narrow, and the screen it's much taller now, but it's still good to type on. The Galaxy Fold 1 had that hilariously tiny screen which had like massive chin and forehead and all that, but I actually really liked that. You mentioned the two home screens. You can have two home screens, one on the outside, one on the inside. I really liked that because you could also almost turn the outside screen into like a large smartwatch. So I only had a few select apps that I'd only want to use for, like, you know, switching between music or reading an email or something like that. I only had very few apps. The phone app there, which I don't even have the phone app on my main home screen on the Galaxy Fold. But I had it there on the front screen because that's why I'd be using the phone stuff like that. I really did like. But it's funny that a lot of reviewers complained about that screen being so small and are happy that it's bigger now. Whereas I'm the opposite. I preferred the smaller screen, and in fact, I prefer a device at this point that doesn't have an outside screen. It's so strange how I'm pretty sure I'm in the minority here, but I do prefer the Duo's choice of not having an outer display. I really do like that, and I admired the Galaxy Fold for having a small display as a result. Since then, it's gotten bigger and bigger. You can now essentially use the phone as a single screen phone on the outside, which is great and it's fine, and I get it, but I personally liked the design and the sort of ethos around having a device that closes completely, which is really interesting. Yeah, you know, you mentioned the Samsung software. I've said this all along. Samsung software is just massively bloated. And in the past, that it showed in performance. Samsung software was often very slow, very laggy, not great. In the last few years, One UI 4, One UI 5, I think One UI 3 as well, really changed that. And One UI now, I think, is very good looking. I think it looks nice, but it is still very bloated. But you don't really feel it anymore. It's just sort of almost native to the OS, which is really nice. But you're right, there are thousands of tweaks and customizations and apps and things that you're only going to use 10% of, because that's how, you know, I never used most of it. And, you know, I would dive in there and configure things, but a lot of stuff in there I'm turning off. There's a lot of things that's on by default on the Galaxy Fold and just Galaxies in general, and I'm shutting them all off. I don't want that. This stupid Edge panel, get away from me. Samsung Pay, go away. Loads of things in there that you just don't want, and it's always there. Whereas the Duo is basically stock plus Microsoft, which is great for me because I'm on the Microsoft bus, so I don't need to download any of the Microsoft apps because it's already here. So I'm sticking with the Duo 2 is essentially what I'm getting at here. And I'll be really interested to see what they do with the Duo 3. I get the feeling the Duo 3 will be similar to a Galaxy Fold. Maybe not in shape and size. I think they're certainly going to go for the more other, because, you know, the Chinese brands have done foldables as well, but their sizes are very different. I think Microsoft will lean more in that way, but I definitely think the whole foldable with an outside screen is certainly the future for the Duo line, which is a shame. And so I'm cherishing as much time as we have left with this Duo 2.
All that work for that amazing hinge that they get rid of.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, so what I really want is kind of combining, you know, give me a Surface Duo 3 with the Duo 2's design,
but with an
updated chipset. Yeah, new improved camera, you know, and just maybe an outside display, that kind of stuff, and I'd be totally fine, because, like, you know, that's the allure with using the Fold 4. The camera is really nice. The performance is really good. The battery life is slightly improved. Like, you get all that kind of those perks, and those are hard to deny. You know, that makes it using it kind of fun. Whereas the Duo 2, you know, I said the camera is good enough for me, but no one's ever going to say, like, that's enough camera. I don't need it.
I need less cameras now. Thank you.
Of course you want an improved camera. So I'd like to see that. But yeah, I'm hoping that, like I said, they keep, you know, single screen, fine, but don't have it as tall. Keep the close to the same ratio that you have with the Duo 2. Maybe it doesn't have to be as wide, but something similar. do the software drawn so it always opens up apps on each side. Let people, of course, just override it for full screen apps when they want to. I'd be fine with that. Get rid of the gap. Make it super thin. But like as you mentioned, there are the Chinese versions that are coming out now that have done that, right? And that's where Samsung now seems like they're kind of getting lost behind because they don't have competition in the Western markets. Like they still have a gap, they still have a crease. It's still a thick thing. Whereas the Chinese brands got rid of the crease, they got rid of the gap, and they're incredibly thin. So it's like if Microsoft can do that, bring it to the US with their own software, yeah, I think that's going to be a much better device. Would I recommend the Fold 4, for anyone else? I mean, yeah, I think it's, for the fourth version, I think it's pretty well established and refined at this point. It's but it's still, like I said, it's a lot of device, it's a lot of money. But if you're like a power user, a real technical person who wants the best and has the money, yeah, I mean, it's been stable. I've had like no issues with it crashing. Nothing that's made me want to throw it across the room. And that's kind of all you can say for something. But they did a really nice job. It's just the question is it for you? And that's a separate one. That's why I'm not dinging it too hard. I'm not saying Samsung's wrong in doing the things it does, or having not focusing enough on multitasking the way I want them to. Maybe the devices I'm not right for. Maybe I'm in the wrong, which is why I would go to Duo 2. But this is where we always got into this debate. People always equated the two devices, and said the Samsung did it better. And it's just like, it's a different experience, man. They're attacking the same problem from different beginning points. And I did find, interestingly enough, like I said, I was mentioning about the gestures, a lot of Microsoft software and Samsung software actually overlaps in terms of functionality and kind of what they're going for. I don't know if that's because they're kind of cooperating or talking, or they're just looking at each other's notes and cribbing a little bit, but there's a lot of similarities between the two. So yeah, I don't know. I'll have more on the Fold 4. I don't know if I'll do a full review, but I'll do probably more content. I'll probably update whether or not I'm going to switch to it, because I only have a couple of weeks, I think.
You're going to betray the Duo? Is that what we're hearing? Is that what's going to happen here?
Well, it's one of those things like, yeah, I mean, I might just keep it and just eat the cost and just use it occasionally as my second phone, or vice versa.
Yeah. I'm curious if the 12L update for Duo will bring you back, because they're doing updates to the design. It will look a little bit more like sort of Windows 11 in areas, which I'm really looking forward to. Because right now, I think it's fair to say the Duo software looks kind of just like stock Android, which is kind of very Google materially. Whereas Android 12L, the first time, they're actually putting their own fluent design sort of spin on Android, which is really nice. And I've been lucky enough to see screenshots of it here and there. And I'm very excited for what's to come in that regard, in regards to the UI. Because I'm a big UI person. I am. I love the design of things, the animations of things, and just that polish. And the fact that they're trying to fit it more in with the Microsoft design language really sort of brings home the reason why I use a Duo, is because it's a Microsoft device. And yeah, and I think it looks better than the Samsung UI, so.
No, you're right. I think it does too. In fact, like that was another thing I just noticed when I picked up the Duo 2. So because the screen is so tall on the Fold, reaching for that notification shade is like stretch.
Yeah.
It feels way too much work. Now, I just mentioned the fingerprint reader can help with that. It does help with that, but it's still like when I open the Duo 2, like it's just way easier for me to slide down and bring down the notifications and manage my notifications than I can on the Fold 4. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'll send it back, because at this point I could probably sell it for more money.
Yeah, right. You can make a profit.
I only paid $1,000 for it, so I'm pretty sure I could sell it for $1,500, and someone would still get a really good deal on it. We'll see. I don't know. If you want to make an offer, hit me up on Twitter. We can talk. Anyway, let's move on. We are getting a little long here in the podcast, but we do have another ad read this week. I'm sorry, folks, but I'm not sorry for this company, because they make really good stuff. It is Manscaped. I don't have a really funny introduction for this one, of course. It's been a busy week for myself, but let's do the ad read, the introduction. I'm going to actually read it. If you haven't already heard, it's Smooth Sack Summer. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're Scaped from pubes to bum. That's right. This is summer to keep your balls cool while still looking hot with Manscaped. The leader in below the belt grooming is making sure we all have a ball this summer. Wow, they're really going all for it. By giving our pants partners everything they need to stay fresh. Dive head first into Smooth Sack Summer by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with our code WCP. It is an important thing. They got the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which I use regularly. It's actually really good for, it comes with different clips on it, so you don't have to go shave all your hair off if you want. You can do different lengths. If you want to trim your arm hair, for instance, but still have arm hair, not because you're not a swimmer, you could do that. So you look a little bit cleaner. By the way, pro tip, if you work out, there's a reason why bodybuilders always shave. If you trim down your arm hair and all that, you got those veins showing up. That looks a lot better in your arms if you don't have hair in the way. I also, said I recommend people shave your armpits. Again, you don't need to pick them. You don't have to clean cut everything. Trim that stuff down. Your deodorant and antiperspirant will work 1,000,000 times better because antiperspirant only works when it's touching the skin, not when it's clumped up in all the hair. So this is just not rocket science. Trust me. Trim your armpit hair. Your deodorant will seemingly last longer, as well as your antiperspirant. But overall, they got the nose trimmer, which is really nice. They got the packages you can buy. The performance package is everything you need to prepare that summer bod. There you get the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker, which is the ear and nose hair trimmer, Crop Preserver ball deodorant, Crop Revive toner, performance boxer briefs, and a travel bag to hold your goodies. It's actually kind of a cool starter kit. They also sell their razors, which you can use on your lower half as well, which is way better shaped than just using your face razor. Please don't do that. All good stuff. Like I said, 20% off plus free shipping. That's actually significant. If you punch in that code, WCP, you get a really nice discount here, and that free shipping is really nice. And you can keep just using that until your heart's desire. They also have subscriptions, too. If you want to get those razor replacements, they can do that for you, too. But, hey, I personally use this stuff. There's not many companies that I know of that are shipping all this product. And they're always kind of coming out with better stuff. But I'm telling you, your significant other will appreciate you getting this, and that's really what it's about. Plus, you'll have a little bit more confidence when it's time for friskiness. And that's as much R-ratedness as I'll get on this podcast. But again, WCP is the code. Go to manscaped.com, 20% off. As always, we appreciate them sponsoring our podcast. All right, let's turn to HP. Even though IFA is about to happen next week, and there's some big announcements, there's two things. Mark this podcast. There'll be two things I'm really excited to talk about probably next week. But HP jumped the gun a little bit and announced some new stuff as well. One of them is the all-new all-in-one, the 34-inch all-in-one. So I kind of reviewed.
Looks great.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was originally called the NV all-in-one, NV 34 all-in-one. Now they're just calling it the 34 all-in-one. And that's because this is more like a little bit more businessy aimed at, but it doesn't mean you can't buy it as a consumer. Of course you can. It doesn't have like a ton of...
What changed for it to be more businessy?
They probably load it up. So they have like their Wolf security software and some other little things that's kind of needed. But yeah, for the most part, I've used plenty of HP's business devices as my own for a long time, and it's no difference. So if you don't know, this thing is a massive. It's got a 34-inch 5K display. It's the world's most powerful commercial all-in-one, according to HP. It runs the Intel Core i9 12th Gen 12900. That's a very powerful chip. And an NVIDIA RTX 3060 GPU, all packed into this all-in-one, man. And it's super clean looking. Mad thin bezels on it. I ran the other version with 11th Gen, and I friggin' loved it. I had to send it back because it was a prototype, but what a cool device. It's a 21:9 aspect ratio. But yeah, you can scale this down. You can get a Core i5. I think you can just probably get, you can get RTX 3050 graphics if you want. Up to 4 terabyte SSD. And what's neat is it's accessible. It's one of the few all-in-ones where it just got a trap door. You just pull it off, and those are the SSDs. We're right there. It's ridiculous how easy it is. So you can actually replace the storage on this yourself. You can get up to 128 gigs of DDR5, 4800 SD RAM, which is pretty awesome. And you have all the jacks on there, 2 Thunderbolt 4, 4 Type A, Ethernet, headphone, SD card reader. And then you have another Type C and 2 more Type A's, which are in the stem. And so you can also use the cameras on this and everything. It's pretty wild. I think this is also the one where you can also use the 2 cameras on it. I forgot. But overall, that's should be coming out soon as well. They also announced a 4K webcam, which is kind of cool. I will be reviewing that because I'm kind of curious about it. They got nice software. The big thing, though, was they sent us a pre-production model of the new HP Dragonfly Folio G3. What makes this interesting is we talked about the Dragonfly laptop, the Dragonfly G3, which just came out and I've been using. And they got rid of it as a 2-in-1. It's just a standard clamshell. We're like, why would they do that? That's kind of weird. It's a great laptop, don't get me wrong, but what made the Dragonfly kind of cool was it was a 2-in-1, and they got rid of that. And now it kind of makes sense because now they have this device. So they're calling it the G3, which is weird. There was no Dragonfly Folio G2 or G1, but it is technically their 3rd Folio. They first came out with their Folio in 2018. It had an Intel Y series processor, 16:9 display, and didn't even have a precision trackpad. That thing drives me nuts. But then they came back about 2.5 years later with the Elite Folio, and they fixed all that. Went to a 3x2 display. It has the same pull-it-forward design, and they used precision touchpad, but it also was Windows on ARM and ran a Snapdragon 8cx Gen 2 and got ridiculously good battery life. So they took that same design, basically modified it. Now they dropped Intel 12th Gen into it. So it's still got a 3x2 display, which you can get as basically like a full HD, or you can go 3000 by 2000, even up to OLED, which is pretty wild. Because it's Intel, they had to add vents to this thing. So there's 2 vents on the side, and then a vent speaker grill on top, and then a vent on the bottom. And because of where the speakers are now behind the keyboard, that's where the pen silo was on the Elite Folio. So they had like the same pen as Microsoft. It was a flat pen that dropped in and it charged. They couldn't do that. I was really bummed. I'm like, no, here we go. Instead, though, they did really creative. They came out, they're using a new rounded pen. So it's a full-size round pen. And it has very strong magnets. It clips to the right side, right in front. And it's very strong. Like, this thing won't come off in your bag. You have to kind of yank it off. So they did a really good job with the magnets. But more importantly, it wirelessly recharges when you do that. It's got a little connector, and you plop it on, and it just starts wirelessly recharging. In fact, when you connect it, after about 2 seconds, a little screen pops up on the display and tells you the battery life that's remaining, which is really wild. So they did a great job there. They were able to make the trackpad even bigger, and it's a really good touchpad. Like, it's just smooth. It has a nice click to it, and I just loved using it, and it's just huge. But yeah, so what makes this thing so interesting is it's like the Surface Laptop Studio, right? Although HP did it first, and I think it was Acer did it before them. But yeah, this thing looks like a normal laptop, except it's got like a faux leather exterior to it, and it looks like a regular laptop. And then you can bring the display forward over the keyboard, but you still have the trackpad left. So you can now, like a media mode, you can watch movies, but you can still use the trackpad. And then you can bring it forward even more and lay it down flat at an angle, and now it's like a perfect easel for drawing and taking notes, doing whatever you want. I think this is the best 2-in-1 design you can do on a laptop. Yeah, Surface Pro is great, but like when you flip around the Surface Pro's keyboard, it's purely touch display. You don't have the trackpad anymore. Plus, you have to lift it up, flip it around, and now you're putting the keyboard down, maybe on something dirty. You don't know. Where this thing, you never have to lift it off your lap. It just shifts in all the positions all at once. It got, from my experience, good battery life. The performance was good. I couldn't benchmark it because it's pre-production, but it was very good performance, better than most 11th gen laptops I've used. The other cool thing, this is a big deal. This is a first. They put in a whopping 8 megapixel front-facing camera with AI and auto face tracking and repositioning. So HP's already done a lot of 5 megapixels in their premium laptops, which is already more than what everybody else does. now they're doing an 8 megapixel, and it's a phenomenal camera. Like, it's really good. So if you need something this is a very collaborative laptop. That's what they're aiming at. People who need to collaborate on video calls, need to share things. They also draw and need to ink. Like, this is going to be your device. And of course, there's Dan's favorite, optional 4G and 5G as well. So this thing does it all, and it's comfortable to use. Those fans, I mentioned, I was like, oh, here we go with the fans and the vents and Intel 12 Gen. Honestly, I barely heard the fans at all, if ever. They were super quiet. I didn't feel like hot air blasting out of this thing. It was nice. I was really, really surprised. And I say that because years ago, HP had a similar thing. They had the Envy X2, which was an ARM-based device. I loved the design on it. Sure, the processor was meh, but that was early ARM days. Then they made an Intel version. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And they changed the way it became this weird floppy folio thing. And it was just like, I trashed it. I was just like, you guys ruined the design. It was perfect. And they were surprised at how bad I trashed it. They're like, oh, we worked with Intel. I'm like, yeah, it's wrong. You did it wrong. So, but they didn't do that. They didn't ruin this one. I was a little worried, but like, not only did they not ruin it, it's all around improved. Like, is it better than the ARM version? Yeah, pretty much in every single way. Trackpad is bigger, better. It's got better speakers now. It's got 4 quad speakers that are discrete amplify, 8 megapixel camera. You can get a 3000 by 2000 OLED, more powerful processor. You can get more RAM. You can get more storage. Will it get better battery life than the ARM version? Absolutely not. The ARM version is going to, and I wouldn't have said no to an ACX Gen 3 version had they done that, but I get what they're going for here. But to keep in mind here, it is expensive. Whereas the Elite Folio with ARM started at $1,699, which itself was pretty expensive at the time, and went up to $2,300. The new Dragonfly Folio G3 starts at $2,300 and goes up from there. So Dragonflies aren't cheap. If you don't know, that Dragonfly is above their Elite series. It is their premium. It's their combining of best consumer technologies and business technologies into these devices. So I have to send this prototype back, but they are going to send a review unit when they're ready. I'm very excited. I think it's one of the coolest laptops of the year. Yeah, XPS 13 Plus, no doubt, awesome device. A lot of firsts there as well. But it's a standard clamshell laptop. It doesn't have 5G or 4G. It's not a 2-in-1. You can't do inking on it. Like, it gets pretty hot. I feel like that processor maybe is a little overkill for the device, although I understand what they're going for. I feel like this is just a more straightforward device that I think a lot of people will benefit from. I'm super. I don't know. This one, the ThinkPad X13s, it's going to be very tough for me to choose. Zach, do you have any opinions on all this stuff?
Yeah, I can mention that all-in-one would probably be my next computer if it wasn't for the fact that we're expecting a Studio 3 this October. If that wasn't coming, then this would certainly be in my basket, because I almost bought this last year when it first went. It took forever to come to the UK, but when it finally did, it came to the UK with 11th gen, and 12th gen is awesome, and it was around the corner essentially at this point, and now it's finally here. So yeah, this would certainly be on my to buy list if we didn't have the Studio 3 around the corner. But since that's coming, I will certainly compare them, because this starts at $2,200. I'm expecting the Studio 3 to be probably more than that. Probably a couple grand more, maybe.
More than that and less than that.
Yeah, definitely.
What you get.
But you mentioned it has the HP has a 5K display. Technically, yes, it has a 5K display, but also no. Whereas the Studio will certainly have that high density sort of sharp display, which no other PC has. Only Apple displays, unfortunately. So and also the Studio will have touch. The HP doesn't have touch. There are for and against for both of them. I certainly think the HP will be more powerful, given you can get it with an Intel Core i9 12900 and a GeForce RTX 3060. Not too sure if you're going to be able to get an i9 in the Studio 3.
Probably not.
Yeah,
they did a pretty sick job in engineering this thing. It's pretty wild. But yeah, you're right. Even the 5K thing, you're correct. So because it's an ultra wide, 5K means less. So basically, if you were to measure the PPI, pixels per inch, the Surface Laptop Studio 3, which we don't even know the specs of, is definitely going to beat it because of its orientation. There's no doubt about that. And what about the Folio G3?
Yeah. That's not for me.
Oh, it's so good, man. It's just like, I don't know. It's just such a cool device and feels amazing to carry around because it's like a wedge. It's wider
It
at
does
the
look
ends
good.
and thinner.
I'm ready for ARM. I know HP likes to do
Yeah.
Intel, but a lot of their designs, even Dell, like just come on, let's do some ARM stuff. Come on.
Well, I mean, they had the Elite Folio,
No, I
which was,
know. Yeah, I know, but
but I wouldn't recommend the ATX Gen 2 at this point. If it
no,
had
yeah,
like I said,
exactly.
they just made that with the Gen 3, it would actually be a pretty good offering. Maybe they will update. I don't know. It would be kind of cool. Maybe they'll wait for Nuvia. I think a lot of these companies seem to skip a generation
Yeah,
for ARM. They take turns on them. So we'll see. But HP, man, I don't want to choose an OEM that I like the best, but like HP stuff is like really good. Like for me, just all the between the keyboard, their audio, and their webcams tend to be actually I'm going to say definitely are better than Dell and Lenovo. They're all improving. Dell and Lenovo get
yeah.
better with each design. Don't get me wrong, and they're good enough for a lot of people. But HP, I don't know, and I just like kind of their silver design. Sometimes they just look really nice. But we'll see. That's HP. Like I said, IFA coming up. We have some news around that next week as well, I believe, and should be kind of cool. All right, let's turn to, and Zach, you can handle this story since I'm talking so much today.
Yeah.
What happened with Xbox?
Yeah, so well, really, what you should be asking is what happened with PlayStation this week.
Right.
Sony announced that they are planning to raise prices of the PlayStation 5 in several key markets. These prices will run as high as 20% more than what they were previously, which is really not great. The company cited economic pressure and inflation as the key driver behind this decision. Not good. So you will be paying more for the same hardware. Everybody's struggling. It's not great. And so Microsoft took this prime opportunity to remind everybody that, hey, Xbox exists and we have the Series S and the Series X, and both of those prices will be remaining the same for now. You know, Microsoft can't know the future. If components do shoot up in price, Microsoft will obviously have to raise the prices eventually. But as of right now, they've come out of the woodwork and said, hey, listen, feel free to buy an Xbox. We're not planning to raise the prices. In fact, I can give you word for word. They said, we are constantly evaluating our business to offer our fans great gaming options. Our Xbox Series S suggested retail price remains at $299, that is in dollars, or the Xbox Series X is $499 in dollars. So yeah, that's not a guarantee that the price will never rise, but as of right now, at least, Microsoft has no intention to do so. They will likely, they sound like they don't want to. They'll only do it if they have to. Sony has already gone ahead and done it. I think Facebook announced that the Oculus was raising in price recently as well, and that was met with terrible criticism. It went up by $100, I think, which is just unacceptable, really. But yeah, this is happening. A lot of things are going to be more expensive. The new iPhone is rumored to be $100 more expensive as well. I wouldn't be shocked if the new Surfaces this fall are a little bit more expensive than they have been previously. It's just the way the economy is right now, and it's a real shame. But it's nice to see Microsoft trying to hold on to the current retail pricing of the Xbox for as long as possible. Sony doing this and increasing the price gives Microsoft an even stronger chance of acquiring new gamers, because this is kind of what happened with the Xbox 360 and the PS3, although the 360 did get a year head start, which was probably the real driving factor for its success in that generation. The other thing was that the PS3 was, I think, $600, whereas the Xbox 360 was $450 or $500. It was cheaper, and now that price gap is becoming another reality for them. So, hey, maybe that'll benefit Microsoft in the long run if they can hang on to their pricing for as long as they can, even do some sales. I saw that the Series S was on sale for 5% off yesterday in the UK. So, yeah, if they can hold on to that, I think that this might benefit them quite significantly, which is what they need to sort of gain gamers' love back from the PlayStation.
Yeah, it's interesting with you wonder if Surface prices will go up too, with inflation and everything. But inflation seems to be kind of coming under control. But then again, obviously with Sony, it seems like maybe not. Yeah, it's nice. And for people, I know some people like kind of read into this like, well, they said currently, or we're not currently going to be updating, increasing prices. People are like, wink, wink. No, this isn't like Microsoft doesn't want to have to walk this back. Like
yeah, I would say it would be
a month now.
Legal suicide for them to say we will never increase the price of anything. It's like no, they would be told not to say that.
Yeah, I mean China could invade Taiwan tomorrow, in which case all chips are going to go up through the roof, right? So they would have to raise prices. So there's things like that they wouldn't be able to control for. So, but there's no wink here. There's no like, oh, we're going to raise the prices, in September. Like I said, they wouldn't have come out and said this, that they're not confident that they're going to be able to keep the prices as is for now. But Zach's right. They're not going to say we're never going to do it because they can't legally say that. Who knows what the world looks like in 6 months from now. But as of today, there is no intention of raising the prices. And there's no reason to think that they're going to, at least in the immediate future. So
this
I think
was a great PR move from Microsoft's part. Like, oh, that's Sony doing a bad. Let's capitalize. We're not raising prices. Yeah, everybody cheer. Literally, this story was massive on our website. Every gaming outlet covered it and linked back to it because it's one of those sort of dunking moments that companies sometimes do, especially in the gaming space. The famous one, of course, is when Microsoft announced the Xbox One and they said you can't share games. Sony put out like a 10-second video of air quotes how to share games on PlayStation 4, and it was literally one guy giving a game to another guy. Genius. It totally just makes Microsoft look like a total fool, and it makes Sony look great. This is the same thing. Sony's done a bad thing here, and Microsoft is capitalizing on it, as they should. This is sort of healthy competition in the gaming space that we like.
Yeah, and the reason, I was zoned out. Sorry, I was like looking at stuff. So you might have mentioned this, but there's a reason why Microsoft, they're not doing this just because it's like, yeah, it's good press. They get an edge on Sony here, but it's not like they're not feeling the same economic pressure that Sony is. Of course they are. They're using the same silicon and same parts, not exact same parts, but you know what I mean. The general technology is all the same. But the difference here is Microsoft is probably willing to eat some of that cost because of Game Pass.
Yeah.
Game Pass is doing very well for them. They expect it to continue doing very well in every quarter. And that recurring revenue through monthly subscriptions is more valuable to them than the actual raising the hardware cost of the console. Because they would rather keep the console costs as low as they can because they know more people are likely to buy that and then make up for it with a Game Pass subscription. Sony obviously has this stuff too, but it's nowhere near as mature and robust as Microsoft's is. And Microsoft is probably using the the Game Pass revenue to offset the cost. I think that's really the secret angle here. And I think it's an important distinction. So very cool. Let's turn to a review roundup. We had quite a few reviews this week. We got a Thrustmaster, which still doesn't sound like an appropriate title for Windows Central. It's a TLCM Racing Pedals. I always find this stuff hilarious. Like you can just like make your home office there like a race car or a jet plane, whatever you want. So customizable springs for precise braking. This is a serious pedal system. I don't even know how much it costs. Let's see. $230 up to $270. So you can have literally a clutch, a brake, and a gas pedal under your desk while you race. But hey, if you're into racing games, and these things actually have springs on them, so it actually feels like kind of like a real car, pretty wild. So Ben Wilson reviewed that, and I believe he gave it a 4.5 out of 5. So if you're into that stuff, go check it out. Another review that's doing very well here was the Huawei MateBook E, which I got to play with this for a little while. It's the display, the device itself is really nice. I hated it because it's a 16:9 ratio. Like wow, like why? Come on, Huawei, get your act together. But but the title is Huawei MateBook E review and iPad Pro for Windows fans. Yeah, it kind of is. But they used a floppy keyboard design. It doesn't clip on to the way Surface Pro does, and the Folio is part of the kickstand, so the kickstand is built in. So this design was very cool, like in 2013, in my opinion. Huawei's done this a few times, but basically this device works way better on a desk than in your lap. But it is really a nice device in terms of the actual hardware. It's got a beautiful AMOLED display. Yeah,
it's another device that should be ARM. Why has it got an Intel chip? What are you doing, Huawei?
Yeah, well, they went for an 11th gen Intel Core i5, 1132.
Current gen.
Yeah, although to be fair, I think the 12th gen would cause more problems in terms of heat and everything. But yeah,
ARM in it.
But it's got a real processor, 16 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage. It's a 12.6-inch AMOLED display. Oh, sorry, it's a 16:10 ratio. It really doesn't seem like that to me.
It doesn't
but okay.
look like 1610. Are you sure that's not wrong?
Yeah,
That looks
2560 by
16:9.
1600. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. And it's got some pretty good cameras on it. So, yeah, but that review's doing pretty well. People seem to be interested. We got a Secret Lab Magnus Pro Desk review. It's the standing king of cable management. So if you're looking for a new desk, that's also a standing desk with you got the little buttons on it, so it automatically raises, which is kind of cool versus the hand crank ones. And you get like presets on it too, which is something even my desk doesn't have. It looks really nice here. Also got very good, and yeah, it has really good cable management and place to hang your headphones, which is really wild. So that also got a 4.5 out of 5. So if you're looking for a new desk, let's see how much that thing is actually. Do we have the price? It is. See at Secret Labs. I bet it's not cheap. Well, you can modify it. Yeah, it starts around $800 and it goes up to over $950. So yeah, it's gonna be an expensive desk, but if you just need one. The TP Linker Archer Axe 75 Wi-Fi 6E router review, the first affordable option. Wi-Fi 6E is the latest standard in superfast wireless network. TP-Link offers the first affordable router to support it, but does the lower cost affect its performance? Apparently not. That also got a 4.5 out of 5. Lots of positive things here. We also reviewed Saints Row for Xbox, which is kind of cool. Old and New Clash in his Goofy Gangster Sandbox. That only got a 3.5 out of 5. We reviewed Multiverse. That's Multiverses. Sorry, that's that new super smashing platform fighter. I got 4 out of 5. It's a really popular game right now. Oh, we also got the Dell Dual Charge Dock review, the HD22Q. This is actually really kind of cool. Kale Hunt did this one. So it looks like a standard Qi charger for your smartphone with a vertical stand at a slight angle. It looks just like that, and that's what it is. It's you put your phone on it, wirelessly recharges it. But behind it, instead of just like a base, that base is a full dock. And so you can use it with your PC, basically. So you get 8 total ports, including HDMI 2.1 and DisplayPort 1.4. And it can run up to a 90 watts charging for your laptop. So you connect up your laptop, you can get 90 watts of power to it for docking, which is pretty cool. And you get all sorts of other features as well. So if you're looking for a tiny desk dock for your laptop that's going to give you a bunch of extra ports and Ethernet and all that, this thing is pretty wild. And then finally, I reviewed the Razer Basilisk V3 Pro and the Mouse Dock Pro. So this is the best mouse you can get right now, period. I don't think there's anything better than this, and I don't see how there could be. So I've been using the Basilisk Ultimate for the last couple of years because it's the same thing. So this thing wirelessly recharges. It has a dock that you connect it to. I just think it's cool. It has the thumb pad on it, so it cradles your thumb while you're moving around, which just feels nice. This mouse is really aimed at 2 classes of people: gamers who are not like the hardcore gamers like pros, but people who game hard, like who really enjoy gaming because that's really good hardware in it, and also creative professionals who just need a really good mouse. If you use like an MX Master, this is like a very similar kind of layout and features. The big thing here, of course, they added more RGB lighting, which I'm actually really happy about. It's got the underglow on the mouse, so that glows, which is wild. But they changed the wireless charger, thank God, because that charger was really cool before. But after about a year or two, the prongs that it used to connect for the charging started to not connect as well, and you have to kind of wiggle it around to get the charge. They completely switched. So now it's a Qi wireless system. And it magnetically just sticks. It's flat and just connects up. And there's a little puck that you put into the mouse because you don't need to do this. You can just buy this mouse without this and just use it either wired. You can use a 2.4 gigahertz dongle or Bluetooth. It has all that in there. But if you want to use the wireless dock, you can get that as well. And you put a little Qi puck into the mouse, lock it in, and now it wirelessly recharges. And this thing just clips on and starts charging, and it's freaking awesome. At the end of the day, that's all I do. Put it on there. And as it's charging, the LEDs, the RGB changes lighting. So if it's really low on battery, it'll be red and it'll pulse red. If it's getting better. It's orange, then yellow, and then green pulsing is almost there. Then if it's steady green, it means it's fully charged. Just really cool to be able to look at your mouse that way and be like, oh, okay, it still needs charging. But it lasts more than a couple days on a single charge, of course, depending on how bright you make it. In terms of the technology behind it, it's got a lot of sick stuff in it. So the scroll wheel is both a clicky scroll wheel and free scroll. And then there's a mixed version, which if you start, so say you're in clicky and you start scrolling really quickly, it'll switch to free scroll automatically. So you can scroll really quickly. And then when it slows down, the ratcheting comes back on automatically, which I love. I think that's a great little feature. It's only for right-handed people, so that's a shame. But if it's 90% of the world, it has a true 30,000 DPI Focus Pro optical sensor. 30,000 DPI is absurd. But there you go. It does hyperspeed 2.4 gigahertz, like I said. New switches in there. The thing is, too, you can connect it to if you use the wireless dock, you'll get 4,000 hertz polling, which, again, is totally absurd. Most pro gaming mice will get 1,000 hertz wireless polling. This thing you can do 4,000 or 2,000 if you're, So compared to the Logitech MX Master 3S, which is the latest from Logitech, well, that's way cheaper. That's only about $99. But the performance is nowhere going to be there. Instead of 4,000 hertz, you get 125 hertz. So it's not good for gaming. You can only use the Type-C for charging, which the Logitech is so dumb sometimes. Because you want to be able to plug it in with Type-C to charge it and use it. Use it wired. Why not, right? But they don't allow you to do that. The Basilisk does allow you to use it wired. And there's only 7 programmable buttons instead of 10. So I don't think it's as good a mouse for gaming. It's a good mouse for creativity. That said, Logitech has the G903, which is its top tier gaming mouse. It's also cheaper. Same thing, though. You can't get 4,000 hertz polling. It only has a 25K sensor instead of 30K, blah, blah, blah. So what's the downside? Well, it's the cost, of course. This thing is not cheap. The actual mouse is $160, which that's a lot for a mouse. And if you want to get the charger, I believe it's an extra $60, I want to say. Well, I got the prices here. Okay, hold on. Extra while. Okay, yeah. The dock is $70, an extra $70. But you can buy them as a package from Razer.com. So for $200, you'll get everything. You'll get the dock, you'll get the 4,000 hertz polling, you'll get the mouse, you get the cables, and all that kind of stuff. Is it worth it? I mean, like I said, this is the best performing mouse you're going to get, whether you're gaming or you're using it at your computer. So yeah, I think so. But there's no doubt a $200 mouse combo is very expensive. Zach, I'm surprised you wouldn't get this because it's so just clean.
Do you know what mouse I'm using right now? I'm using the default Surface Studio mouse.
Gross.
I know. The only reason I am is because I was using the Surface Precision mouse, but the left click on it is finally given in, so it's like mushy now. It's no longer got the nice satisfying click to it. It just feels gross. So I've swapped back to this. I don't know what I'm hoping for in October. I'm hoping for a new Surface Precision mouse. I don't think they're gonna do one, but who knows?
Right. I forgot about that. That was a pretty decent mouse.
Yeah, it's nice, but it's still charged with stupid micro USB. They really need to update it with USB-C.
Yes. Yeah. That's sacrilege at this point. Yeah. But this mouse is I just love the docking station. It just looks cool. If you don't like the lighting, you can obviously turn it off, or you can configure it however you want, which is really kind of cool. But it's just super comfortable to use. It's fast. It's accurate. I don't know. I love it. And I love the scrolling on it. It's just really good. So that is, what's the name again? They have such tough names. Razer Basilisk V3 Pro and the Mouse Dock Pro. So it is now available. So there you go. All right. I think that just about does it for the podcast. I guess we can do Thing of the Week if you have one, Zach.
Yeah, real quick. It's a game this week. It's not a new game by any means, but it's a game I finished recently with a friend. It Takes Two, which is available on Game Pass. Awesome game, narrative driven, co-op based, so you have to play it with a friend. But it has a thing where only one of you needs to own the game, so you both don't have to buy it. Even if you're playing on different consoles, you can invite a friend and they can download a game and play with you, which is really cool. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a game about this family, these two parents who are arguing and stuff, and they go on an adventure to sort of resolve their issues in their relationship and be better parents as a result. It's funny, it's exciting. It was just great. I had a great time playing it. It took me a little while to complete actually, but finally got around to finishing it, and it was a really good game.
Nice. I don't believe I have a thing of the week this week. My thing of the week has been the Folio G3. It's been the Fold 4. It's been the Basilisk mouse. Like I'm just swimming in like what I think is some of the coolest technology that's out there right now, and I've just been really happy to review this stuff. It's always nice to get cool stuff that you want to review and enjoy reviewing, and that's been the case this week. So that's my thing of the week. But I'm sure we'll have more next week as well, and maybe I'll try to get out more. We'll see. Other than that, I guess that does it for us. We'll do Q&A with the audience now. So if you're watching this live, you get to stick around in the chat room, drop your questions of things we did talk about or we did not talk about. Feel free to ask those now. But if you're listening to this recorded, of course, you don't get to hear that. We do record every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel at Windows Central. You can also follow me at Twitter at Daniel_Rubino, Rubino, and ask me questions there. You can also follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN. And of course, we should have Jez Corden back next week after he recovers from Gamescom to talk about what he learned, what his favorite things were there, what games he's excited about, because I know there's quite a few he has been talking about there. And we look forward to his opinions. And maybe him and I will also talk about the Fold a little bit more, because he's a Fold 3 user and a big believer and returned his Duo 2 way too early. Of course he did, but we'll talk a little bit about that. As always, thanks for listening in, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone. Ooh, exactly 128, 1 hour, 20 minutes.
Yeah, mine's 12757. All right, if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. We're going to hang around for a few minutes and do our best to answer them.
I should have taken my dog for a walk earlier, because now it's thunderstorming. Great.
Will official support for Windows and ARM come to Mac before the Nuvia processors are launched? I do not know. I think they said they're going to share more about licensing Windows and ARM later this year, so I would say it's before Nuvia for sure. But it's less about Microsoft supporting Mac and more about Apple supporting Boot Camp on Apple Silicon, I'm pretty sure. Because Apple needs to write the drivers for Windows and ARM so it can boot natively on a Mac. Microsoft, that's not in Microsoft's core. That's certainly an Apple thing. So Microsoft may be like, hey, yeah, Windows and ARM, you feel free to buy a license and install it on a Mac, but if Apple doesn't provide the tools or the drivers to allow that, then it's not going to happen. So, yeah.
HP keeps making laptops and offering them for review. It's getting overwhelming.
Can you stop making laptops, please? Thank you.
Yeah, they're offering the new NV16, which, ooh, that looks so nice. I'll drop the, if you guys want to look what I'm talking about, because I'm going to respond to this. And this has the Intel Arc graphics, which I haven't tried yet. So what do you guys think about that? The NV16, that thing looks sweet. Zach, you should check it out too. It's not a Surface though.
No. Dan, Zach, are you concerned about the naming schemes for operating systems like Paul Thorottin's? They're advertising Windows 11 22H2 as the Windows 11 2022 update to testers. I'm not too bothered about that name. It's pretty standard for what it should be. It is the big update for this year. It would make more sense if they were planning to do them annually, but as we all know, based on my reporting, they're getting rid of that starting next year. So, but yeah, I mean, what else are they going to call it? They could call it 11.1, I guess, which would make more sense, but they won't do that because it messes with the brand. So I guess we're sticking with Windows 11 2022 updates. That's fine by me. I don't see the concern or issue with that. It will be annoying when you're running Windows 11 in early 2024 and you're still running the 2022 update though, because it just makes it seem a little bit outdated. But that's always with Microsoft. That's always just been how they do things with dates. They always add the year. Windows 95, Windows. Was you running an out-of-date piece of software in 1996 when you had Windows 95? Probably not. But yeah. The fact that next week I might watch this on a Surface Duo is crazy. Yeah, good. Congratulations on buying one. They are out of stock. The Duo 1 is officially out of stock in the UK. I don't know if that's the same in the US, but there's no more of them. So whatever's out there is probably used at this point. So cherish them, because they're not making any more. Do you think moments will be labeled as community updates in settings? I have no idea. Really have no idea how they plan to. I assume it will be the same as how they rolled out the February features to Cobalt, which I think were cumulative updates. I don't think they were labeled as something special in Windows Update. They were announced in a blog post, which I think moments will be as well, but I don't think they will show up in Windows Update as anything special. Microsoft Surface banned with Wear OS and Office 365 functionality? Question mark? No, that is not currently something they are planning to ship. Zach, which borough of London are you from? I am from Camden. Camden Town. Born and raised. Should we expect 12.0 to be announced or surprised drop for Duo? I don't know how they're planning to announce that. I mean, it certainly won't be a surprise if you listen to this podcast, because I'll know in advance when it's coming. But maybe it'll be. I don't think they're gonna like pre-announce it and then roll it out and like I give you a date and then launch it in 2 weeks. I think it'll roll out for, if it doesn't roll out in September, because we get the monthly update. It'll roll out on one of the monthly update times. Which month would it be? We don't know. I don't think it'll be September, because they'd need to have a final build done basically now, and as far as I'm aware, that isn't the case. So it could be October. So they'd need to have a final build of Android 12 by mid-September-ish, or sort of towards late end of September, to have them roll out for the first or second week of October, which is kind of when I would expect it to be. Because they're not going to do 2 updates in a month. They're going to save Android 12L for whichever month they plan to roll out the new security update. They'll also roll that out with Android 12L. Do you think Duo 3 is spring next year or fall? It's late 2020. Sorry, it's late 2023. It will not be sooner than that. It might even be 2024, but late 2023 is the current scheduled plan for it, for rollout anyway.
Does Rubino use a case on the Fold? Which one? Yeah, so I mean, when I bought it, they threw in the S Pen case, which is also a kickstand case. So I'm using that currently. It's okay. It definitely thickens up the device, no doubt about that. But at least I like the protection. It's still slippery, in my opinion. And so I have ordered 2 other ones. I ordered the Samsung silicone case that has the little hand strap on the back, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to. That kind of solves maybe my one-handed issue, which is you can solve anything, make anything one-handed. You can make a Surface Pro 7 or even 8 one-handed if you put a case on it with a strap, and Kensington makes those, so you can hold it that way. So I'm going to try that one out, plus it's silicone, which should be a little bit more grippy and soft, which I like. But I also ordered a third-party case, which I forgot the name now. So I'm going to try that one out to see how it is. That one also has a little bit more grips on it. Yeah, so there's also the ladder case, from Unbox Therapy. I think it looks really nice, but it's $50 since a pre-order, so I don't know. But yeah, I'll be trying out maybe a couple of cases, and hopefully that will push me in the direction of keeping the phone or not.
Zach, what is happening to a modern touch-friendly version of Office? Nothing. What you have in Office today is the touch-friendly version. That's kind of the point of it. The old UWP apps are dead. They're not being updated anymore, so
So do you think Duo is a product Microsoft is going to continue after Duo 3? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but it really depends also how Duo 3 does. I mean, if Duo 3, they ship it, reviewers get it, and it's terrible, I don't know, but I don't think that'll be the case. I think they're going to
Yeah.
have a lot of this figured
I
out,
guess what you could
you
say, the
know?
current intention is to continue making Android phones after the Duo 3. That is
Yeah.
certainly something they want to do and they are striving to achieve.
Daniel, what is your favorite Surface line of devices and why? It's really tough, but because I really do appreciate all of them. I've been way more happy with the Laptop Studio than I kind of thought I would be because it's not technically my demographic, but I know Zach is a big fan of it um, because the performance and battery life is just really nice on it, and it's just a nice machine to use, even if I don't use the different postures all the time. But it's just like it's a really good laptop. Where you couldn't really say that about Surface Book, right? Surface Book was full of compromises, but here you're getting a real processor, you're getting a real GPU, and the battery life is just surprisingly good on it. And I just love the design. So that's the thing. I always have a soft spot in my heart, though, for the Surface Pro. I think the Surface Pro is kind of perfect. The Pro 8, I think, is just an outstanding device. And also, with that, the Pro X, right? The Pro X is actually really my kind of dream device. That said, the ACX Gen 2 isn't as performant as I'd like to, which is where the Pro 8 feels better. But we are expecting Microsoft will be going to the Gen 3 processor. They'll call it the SQ3, of course. And we expect that maybe to go into the form factor of the Pro 9 or 8, whatever it's going to be next. And if they add 5G in there, well, that's going to be, a really nice device as well. But I think they're all great. The Surface laptop I love, specifically the 13-inch. I don't love the 15-inch. And then the Go series is cute. It's not for me, but I appreciate it. It's nice. And Laptop Studio is just gorgeous. We use it in our second office here as our home computer, and it's which is again way overkill, but that's fine.
Yeah, you use yours for Sims, and I'm pushing mine to the brink.
Yes, exactly. Catherine says, I absolutely love my Surface Pro 8. It has been the best PC I've ever owned. Yeah, I mean, Surface Pro 8 is just like, that's why I give it such a good review. It's like, this is it. This is what they've been kind of aiming for all the time. And I just love everything about it. I wish I could use it more. I'm always trying to review laptops. And to be fair to the laptop, I actually try to use them. So.
Zach, will the Surface Pro line get a mild refresh this fall? Mild, probably. I think mild's probably a good way to.
Yeah.
It depends what you're interested in. From a design perspective and form factor, yes, it will be a mild update. That I'm expecting no real changes to the external design of Surface Pro. All the big improvements will be under the hood. It'll be with the silicon. Intel 12th Gen and Microsoft SQ3 are going to provide huge performance boosts in their respective areas. It'll be a great sort of milestone for ARM, and it's going to be good for Intel because of 12th Gen. I keep hearing it'll be P series, which is just insane for the Surface Pro. But that will offer huge performance over the Surface Pro 8. So it's all going to be on the silicon side this year for the Surface Pro line. And that's going to be the sort of big updates for it.
Someone was asking question. What was it? Oh, is HoloLens dead and what's the future for it? Yeah, we don't really know. There was obviously a major shakeup in the org with Alex Kipman departing. And so whoever is coming in and taking over, and they're divvying up some of the work, right? Software is going in its own direction, hardware it's its own. I'm sure they're going to rethink about strategy, right? That's what always happens. The head guy leaves, new guy comes in, or girl, and they got to be like, all right, we're going to continue as is, just without the sexual harassment, or we're going to scrap everything, start new. Let's rethink about how we're going to approach this problem. And we don't know, where they are on that yet. Obviously, the military contract is still going through, so they're going to continue with that development. There's still the supposed partnership with Samsung, and so far we've heard that is still on. That hasn't changed, and I'm sure there's commitments there that they can't back out from. There was the interest and some movement inside to make a consumer version, but that was apparently shelved. Has that returned? Is that back on the table? We don't know. I think we're going to have to give them at least 6 months before we start hearing things. Maybe they publicly say something before the org figures out what it wants to do and what direction it's going to go into. Because I imagine there's going to be a shift in priorities and everything. So I will say, if you're interested in this stuff, there is something cool that's coming out. That'll be announced, I think, next week, and it's not HoloLens, but it's also way more affordable. And it's just it's what I would call the first real pragmatic step to a consumer and even business and more business use technology that makes sense. And it just seems practical for where we are today. So stay tuned for that one.
What is expected for October from Surface, if you haven't talked about it already? I'm planning to put this all into an article, maybe next week. But the things off the top of my head are Surface Pro 9, or whatever they call it. It could be Surface Pro 10, given it's 10 years of Surface. That will be with Microsoft SQ3. That will be with Intel 12th Gen. No external design changes as far as I'm aware. Might be a Sage type cover, which wouldn't surprise me. But that's the only real notable change there, I think.
I wonder if they'll improve the camera.
Yeah, we might get small things like that. Yeah, I don't know for sure what the exact changes are yet. Surface Laptop 5, Intel 12th Gen, AMD Ryzen 6000 series chips on the inside. I don't know if there's going to be a design change for the Laptop 5. I would hope that they're doing some minor things, because that design has remained the same for 4 generations now. Could be time to sort of maybe thin out the bezels a bit, add a second USB-C port.
Maybe round it off.
Yeah, haptic touchpad would be nice as well, but I don't know. That's all speculation outside of
haptic touchpad would be good. Improve the camera a little bit, because everybody's focusing on improving the webcam, right? So I would hope Microsoft would do that.
And then Surface Studio 3. We're finally getting a Studio 3. The only things I've heard about it is that it might be an 11th gen chip, which is so Microsoft if true. But also it'll only be one config. It'll be an i7, 32 gigs of RAM, and a terabyte, I believe. I don't think they're going to do different RAMs options or storage options. Just there's the one unit, buy it. If you don't want it, don't buy it. So yeah, we'll have to see what happens on that department. But yeah, Studio 3 is also expected this October. And that's all I really know so far. We might get earbuds too, but I'm not 100% confident on that yet. So don't quote me if they don't show up.
Hey, Dan, what is the brand model of your watch with a green band? You were wearing it all the time. Was it Seiko? Sorry, I have a lot of watches, like probably 15 at least, and I switch the bands out frequently, so I'm not really sure which one you're referring to. If you can find an image of it, just hit me up on Twitter, and I'll definitely let you know about it.
Right, a couple more questions, then it is time to head off.
Someone's asking, is Duo going to get a Windows version? No. Do you think Surface Line is still as influential, inspirational to OEMs as it once was? That's a good question. Yeah, I think for some devices, I think Laptop Studio kind of set the bar. Surface Studio too, although we haven't seen many devices try to mimic it. But the Surface Pro is so good that we haven't really seen many OEMs. They've tried to make their own version, but none have really been successful, right? Like Microsoft kind of owns that category. We've seen some companies do business enterprise versions with like a smart card reader, stuff that like Microsoft doesn't do, and that's where they find their niche. But in terms of the consumer market, like Microsoft kind of owns that aspect. But that said, Microsoft does, work on a lot of internal technologies, whether it's thermal cooling, the processing, touchpads, and all this, and they work with OEMs pretty closely to make this stuff happen. But yeah, I don't know if it's as influential because, yeah, in my opinion, a company like HP and Dell, Lenovo too, are all really pushing boundaries in their own ways, and they're not being like looking to Microsoft all the time for that. They've really done their own style. With
all of the additions to Microsoft Edge and the development of MAUI, do you see Microsoft leaning more into a Windows 10X style OS or Edge OS going forward for tablets? So this is an interesting question. Obviously, they've tried doing a lightweight version of Windows a handful of times in the past decade, with the most recent attempt, of course, being Windows 10X and Windows Core OS as a whole. And that sort of fell at the last hurdle. Windows 10 X is cancelled now, and as far as I'm aware, Microsoft has no plans to ship a version of Windows on top of Windows Core OS for computers, mainstream sort of devices. That's not happening. That said, I am hearing some things about what's next for Windows as a platform. This all ties into Next Valley, Windows 12, if you want to call it that. I'm not calling it that yet. But the next sort of Windows client release, I am starting to hear a few things around what they're planning for the platform. And I guess what I can say right now is if you look at what Windows Core OS was trying to achieve, they kind of still want to do that, but they're going about it a different way. They're going to try and maintain native compatibility of legacy applications. So they're not going to try and emulate it or virtualize it as much as they possibly can. They're going to try and keep it all native and still modularize the OS so you can take things out when you need to for certain device types, such as tablets that may not want to run legacy programs, for example. This will all be Microsoft configuring, of course. This isn't going to be an end user thing as far as I'm aware. But it's that Windows Core OS vision of a state-separated OS that's more secure, updates faster, is still something they want to achieve. And Next Valley could be when they deliver it. Of course, they may fall behind schedule, and that may be pushed back to Windows 13. But yeah, it is certainly a forward-looking thing for them. It's not, that goal isn't dead. It's just Windows Core OS is dead. But there's something that they're working on that is supposed to sort of replace it as best it can. I will write more about that at some point, but I'm not ready to do so yet. I'm still trying to work out details and stuff, but that is probably my next huge story, big story anyway.
I'm going to go because my pets are demanding.
Yep, all right,
attention.
cool. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next Friday. Follow us on Twitter. We'll keep you updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time.